All right, well, I think we've got a lot of people in, and I think it's about time to really start the critique. A little bit about me. I've been doing design for about 11 years, and I've been doing cover design specifically for about 6 years. And I went to full-time cover designer at the end of July this past year. So from the end of July to now, all I do is eat, sleep, and breathe cover design from Monday to Sunday. I work about 7 days a week. Without further ado, I will get into the cover critique. Let me get into the first cover. And the first one is February's Angel by L.B. Joyce. You'll see my notes here that I've written down about this cover on the front. I should have wrote them on the back of the paper, but I didn't think about that till about 5 minutes ago. But February's Angel, it's a romance. When I see the image, immediately I know that it's going to be a romance or that style genre of a novel. The imagery I like because it doesn't really reveal a lot, but it's kind of an enticing image that I like and I find appropriate for for this type of a novel. It didn't read to me like it was a steamy romance, more of a love romance type novel, and I think that imagery is appropriate. The biggest issues that I have with this is going to be the topography that you've used and some of your placement. I know you placed February's Angel up here on her dress because it was red and it could read well against the white. But I think you could probably just make that font or make that title bigger and stretch it across the page to read better at a thumbnail, to read better at on Amazon and those kind of places. I know they were probably worried about losing some of the title as you get into this area of the photograph. A drop shadow or a light glow or anything behind that type will help that pop off. You can fix that issue. The font you chose, I think, is Monotype Corsiva or Chancery. I'm not sure which one. I can't remember. I'm not a big fan of that font. Usually those fonts are reserved for wedding invitations and that kind of stuff. And even I'm not a fan of using them on those fonts. I feel like that's a font that's a go-to for a lot of basic cover design. And so I would recommend probably a more cursive font or just a more romance, flowy type font. You need to be careful that you don't pick a font that's illegible at a thumbnail size. So if you do go to look for a new font, just make sure you're getting a bold one that can be legible at a smaller size. But I think you would benefit from a font change for your title. Down here, your author name gets kind of lost. It's really small. Again, I think you're probably just trying to make sure that you didn't overlap the imagery. It's okay to overlap the imagery on your cover, and that's going to be an issue we see a lot today with covers. Is I think authors, if they're doing it themselves, and even some cover designers, are afraid to let the type play with and integrate with the imagery of the cover, and you shouldn't be afraid. You don't want to hide important parts of an image, but you can let it overlap and play with it a little bit. And I think your author name should be centered. It should be bigger here. It does get a little lost. Your tagline could be moved up. You used all caps for the tagline there. I think you need to probably use just an italics version, lowercase, of that font. I think that's Minion or Jensen or some type of serif font, but just use the lowercase one. It'll probably read a little bit softer. Those all caps are pretty harsh at that small of a font, and it's kind of hard to read. So you can move that up a little bit. But again, your author name, make it bigger, make your title bigger, and I would probably look for a different title font. So let's move on, because like I said, I'm going to try to cover 20 or so in about 45 minutes, so I don't want to get lost on one cover too long. So the next one up is, let me make sure that, okay. The next one up is The Astonishing Anniversaries of James and David by MJDs, and I like this cover. I think it's a good concept to start with. It's a very, very long title, and when you have a long title, or when I get a cover that has a long title, the one thing I immediately do is make sure that I'm going to treat that title as its own graphical image, and that it's not going to be lost against that image. So you kind of have to make sure that you pay attention here. And I feel like the image, I like that image. It's kind of a retro-y. tape recorder type image. I liked it. I love the font that you use for MJDs down here. This font up here, I think you could probably adjust and address. I think another font here would be appropriate. It's a humor fiction type novel, and I think you're losing an opportunity to echo that humor type fiction. So a playful and alive, a very a very energetic font might be better than just the font you have here, because this is kind of a handwriting type font. It's not bad, but I think you could probably play with that font, and also the title placement. Don't be afraid to let the tape recorder kind of maybe overlap the bottom of the title, or maybe let part 1 be somewhere inside this tape recorder in a cool kind of way, or maybe just kind of play with it. I mean, like I said, I feel like you've got in my opinion, I like the image, I like the simplicity, I like the minimalistic style imagery, but I think you could really make your font contrast that in a very playful, humorous way. So, all right, the next one up is Zoe Zany's Zany Life. And this cover, I like that illustration. You can kind of see it. Let me get it here so you can see it. I like that illustration, and I like it kind of fits the blurb that the author had on the back of the cover. Where I think it's kind of losing here is, again, the way the type interacts with the imagery. Out of the gate, the author name, I think, needs to be bigger. It needs to be bolder. I understand if you're an author and you're not known, you don't want your author name to overshadow the cover. Totally understandable. But here and with the other ones we've shown, it can always stand to be a little bit bigger. Here it gets really, really lost, and if I pull it back kind of like a thumbnail size, you can kind of see it just kind of disappears. So just bear that in mind when it comes to your author name and the placement. Zoe Zany Life. I think here you can make this typography, and I hate to use this word, but you can make this type pop a little bit better. For designers, the word pop is often a terrible way to describe something, but here I think you could really use some bright, vibrant colors to really play. You've got that yellow in the cover down in the image. You could really begin to play with the way that type is on the page. Right now the cover is good, but I think if you really adjusted the colors of your font, I like the font in general. I think it fits kind of with the style of the cover, the genre it's going after, which is middle grade school. I just think you could use a color burst there in your title to really make it sing just a little bit more. So, all right, the next one up is Dominion by Julie Hall, and this cover it's good. It's real good. It's a fantastic cover for the genre. It really helps to convey the genre. It's on point for covers that are in the genre. It's pretty much all what you need for this genre. Now, what I'm going to say is a couple things that are my preference. I'm not a big fan of the treatment here with that gradient and the metal gradient. I'm not a big fan of it. That's me. Also, her hair back here in the back looks like it's kind of, you've got one style hair here, and then it kind of gets really big and flowy and large, and you kind of lose some of the wonderful color that you have here. And I know, lighting as it goes back, the hair is going to get darker and less detailed, but I think it loses that detail really, really quickly. And again, those 2 points, the title here and the hair, those are just small points. One of the things that I encourage authors to always remember is some things are non-essential. You're not going to lose a sale if you leave this type alone. You're not going to lose a sale at all. You're not going to lose a sale if you leave that hair alone. That's a small preference, a small point on my end. And as an author, you don't need to get lost in those small details, because you're all about getting a sale for your book. And that's what your cover does. But there's certain points that are non-essential. If this character needs to be moved over 2 smidges, that's a fine request to make to a cover designer. But don't get lost in those extraneous details, because they're not gonna make or break your cover. This cover by itself right now is ready to rock and roll. If this person sent me a request and wanted to make changes, that's two of the things I would address. But at the end of the day, it's not going to really matter. So don't get lost in those extraneous type details sometimes, because they're not going to cause you stress, and that's no good for an author. So let me skip to the next one. Moving right along here. Audrey Gray, the Cursebreaker. I really like this cover too. It's very similar to the one we just showed, but the difference is now. This cover is pretty solid. It's there. I mean, in my mind, every genre, every cover, has a bar that it gets to where that cover is there, and it'll do just fine. It'll get by. And this cover is at that point. It'll get by. It's good. It's solid. Where this cover had the metal treatment on the title, this cover doesn't have it. It's just kind of a white font, and I think you could probably benefit from some light texturing in that cover, whether it would be like a very, very light metal overlay, or just some kind of texture to break up that solid white. I think you could benefit from. I really like how the S is gone and you have a snake there. That didn't really bother me. I think some people may get bothered by it, but for me, from a designer standpoint, I thought it was neat. I read Cursebreaker immediately. I didn't read Curebreaker, but I guarantee you somebody's going to say it read Curebreaker to me, not Cursebreaker. So, with that S not being there, you're kind of risking somebody saying something. You're not going to lose a sale, I don't think, because of that. And that's what it's all about, getting that sale. Your cover will almost always appear with the title right beside it on Amazon or right below it. It'll always say Cursebreaker, probably right near it. So bear that in mind. I think this cover could benefit from some smoke or mist or fog down here at the bottom to break up this black. You don't want to lose your subtitle here, but I think it will help to kind of add just a little bit of atmosphere to the cover. One of the things here that I want to point out, and I'll point this out in another cover here in just a minute, is you got this blue color in contrast to orange. Orange and blue contrasts are used all the time, especially in movie posters. So keep that, and that's a fine thing to do, and that's what this designer or this author, if they're the ones that's done it, that's what you're trying to play up, is that orange and blue contrast. But what I think it lacks is you kind of got this half. You got blue on one side, orange on the other, and then your character is kind of a neutral color. There's a little bit of blue on her face over there, but it's not a lot. I think this cover could benefit from having some color bleed onto the character a little bit more. And I would probably pick one color over the other. Either the orange needs to be a little bit more dominant, or the blue needs to be a little bit more dominant, to kind of help off balance them. Because right now it just seems cut down the middle, and you kind of want to. I think you kind of want to play with your color balance there, so that they aren't equal to each other. So, all right. Next on the list is Poor Cradle, King Life. This is a nonfiction. It's a self-help book to help you break through, I think, some of your habits and some of your, getting over phobias and that kind of stuff. This cover is just kind of, it's just a little bit. It's plain, and there's nothing wrong with having a plain cover at all. But it really doesn't tell me about the cover. It doesn't really tell me anything about what's inside the contents of this cover. If I saw this cover out, I would probably just glance right over it. I think this cover could benefit from something that a lot of nonfiction covers use, and that's just a single image. The first image that came to my mind was a chess piece, a king chess piece, or even a pawn chess piece. Chess pieces are used all the time, not necessarily the way you want to go, but I think a image isolated against that blue background would really help kind of entice a viewer, because ultimately you don't have to give away the insides of your book, but you want to kind of pull a viewer in. And right now this cover doesn't really pull me in. I think the title needs to, you've got this negative space here. Nothing wrong with negative space when it's used properly, and I'll show a sample of that in just a minute. But here it's just kind of there. So I think you could really use the whole real estate, pull your title across the top of the page. Everything is left aligned. Typically, covers are going to be centered. That's what viewers and potential readers are kind of used to seeing. Left aligned can be done well, it can be done right. But here, it just kind of seems like it's just done. And then your name is all the way over here on the bottom right. So you kind of got some alignment issues. I think, if you center that stuff up, it would help create a nice cohesion and help create some nice hierarchy to your type, title, subtitle, and your blurbs, and then your author name at the bottom. And again, your author name could be bigger. Don't be afraid to tell people who you are. It doesn't have to dominate a cover like Stephen King's name does, but don't be afraid to tell people who you are as an author and your author name. So make your name bigger. And again, I would look at maybe an image that would help kind of convey the contents of the inside of this book, because it doesn't tell me anything right now. Next up is Awesome Words for Geeks and Nerds. And this cover, if you see my note right here, I wrote that it was straight out of 1990, because when I read this, when I saw this cover, that's what I thought. It kind of looked to me like it was a cover from like the early 90s or the early 2000s, just because it has that big, strong, dark border with the isolated image. It kind of reminded me of an old school textbook, and I don't think that's what you're going for. If you guys can't see it, but down here at the bottom, the author has said that their illustrations are throughout this cover, throughout the book. And even this illustration here is kind of funny, because the monkey's knocking out the safari man, and the cat and the bird, they're all covering their noses. And it's a funny image, and I think it would be a funny image for kids to maybe see. But I think you don't need to be afraid of using your entire cover for that illustration. Now, when you do that, yep, your title is going to overlap your imagery. You're going to lose some of that. You're going to lose that bird and that big cat laying there on the branch, and that's okay, because it's not gonna be the end of the world. Your title could be big and bold across the top and overplay that imagery and really invite a viewer in. And so I think you really need to look at that. Another thing is, I think you've used Helvetica rounded or Arial rounded for your title. Again, your font that you choose for your cover can echo the feel of your book, and it's a lost opportunity if you don't get to show that. It's a lost opportunity not to show that that vibrancy and the contents of your book through that type. So I would choose. Oh man, there's a lot of good fonts out there. One of them I'm going to suggest, and this is a funny font, is a font called Pineapple. And look it up. I mean, it's just, if you see font bundles, it's always there usually. And most of the time it's handled poorly, but done right, that font is a very playful, very alive font, and it would probably fit this font, this book very, very well. And there's tons of other fonts out there that you could use. Atlantic, there's Pineapple. I can't think of any right now, but there's, just get on creativemarket.com. You can look up fonts there. There's a lot there that you can use that would help just punch this cover home even further. And don't be afraid to let your title go across the image. Don't be afraid at all. So moving on to the next one. This book is called Dory, and it's you can see up here, it's a dystopian fiction. This cover, I think, needs a lot of work. It needs to really be rethought about a lot. One of the things that really caught my eye immediately was her stretched head. I'm not sure if that's part of the story. To me, it just looks like the image has been stretched. It's been stretched, and it looks kind of displaced. Now that might be integral to the story, but for me as a viewer who's never seen this cover, doesn't know what it's about, that stretched head kind of turns me off. And the font up here at the top is very, very, very hard to read. Back here as a thumbnail, it's going to be very hard to read and pick up. Your name gets lost down here in the corner. You've got your subtitle here, your little tagline down there and up there, and it gets lost as well. One of the things that I try to do as a cover designer is I try to simplify and then amplify. So I simplify a cover down to the elements that really need to be on the cover to entice the viewer, to tell kind of the story of the cover. And then I amplify those elements. And so here you've got the girl, you've got the clock, you've got this crowd of people at the bottom, and you've got like a storm thing happening behind it. You've got a lot of elements playing with each other. But I think you need to simplify and amplify kind of the important parts of that story. There wasn't much to go off of down here in the bottom with the synopsis for me to kind of pull out things you could look at. One of the things I would suggest is always look at your competition. Get on Amazon, look at the top 100, get on Goodreads, look at the top covers there. See what those covers have done right and what sticks out to you, what you like about them, or what catches your eye about covers within your genre. And the goal is not to copy that, but the goal is to be inspired by that, what they did well, how they handled this, how they handled the font, how they handled the treatment of it, and what can you pick and pull to help elevate your cover to the next level. So yeah, Goodreads, Amazon, check out your competition because you want to know what's selling and what's successful. Is About Last Night by Catherine Elliott. My initial reaction was, I like this cover. I like where it started. I am a big fan of simple imagery or minimalistic approaches, and I think this cover has started in that direction. What I think is lacking mainly is the title font. I think you need to pick a new font for that. I think it's just kind of, I think you could probably pick an organic or handwritten type font, and I think it would help to elevate this cover some more. I like the fact that you've got a nice serif up here at the top, nice, and then down here you got a nice little blurb here. I think that's okay. I like the negative space this cover creates with this big open area up through here. I like that. But I think that what kills it is that font. The placement of the title I think is okay. You might want to fiddle with that a little bit, but I think the font is what needs to be worked on. And again, if you're going to choose an organic font, if you're going to go with the handwritten font, you want to make sure that font can be legible at a thumbnail, that it doesn't get confusing, because some of the covers some of those fonts can get very hard to read. So you want to make sure you pick something that's legible. But I think an organic, handwritten, maybe a little bit distressed font would help kind of contrast your serif font and that imagery a little bit. So I Heard Your Dog Died by Bonnie Creekler. I probably said that wrong, Bonnie. I'm sorry. But this font, this cover reminded me of the word book about the Geeks and Nerds. It really felt older. This cover kind of made me think it was produced in the 90s or the early 2000s. And what made me think that and feel that is the colors you chose. I like the font. I don't mind the font. I don't mind the placement of where everything's at. I don't mind the hierarchy you've got going on here, but these desaturated like blue and yellow and they kind of just seem old to me. And I think you could probably go with a brighter, bolder color to really stand out on Amazon. Also, you can't really see it, but there's some texture going on here inside this color. Again, I think that helps to add to that old feel that I thought from it. So I think if you lost your texture and just went with vibrant, strong colors, it would really begin to make this cover pop a bit more. I didn't realize this was a dog in the O at first. I think you could probably go with just a simple silhouetted dog and inside that O, and that would be all you would need. Just a solid color would probably help make that read as a dog, because like I said, I didn't know it was a dog at first. I had to look really closely at it. So, and also you've got these breaks here up at the top and the bottom. Again, it all just kind of feels antiquated. It just feels like it's published back in the early 90s or the early 2000s. So just bear that in mind. Just work on your color there to really make this cover sing a good bit more. From Startup to Success by Charles Edgerton. I like this cover. I think in terms of it being there, it's there. It's a good solid cover. It kind of does look like what a startup cover would be. Where I think one thing I think you need to focus on is your tagline up here at the top. I would pull it down below your author name. Let that rocket ship kind of breathe in that negative space. Let it be alive there. Because right now it feels kind of trapped. Like I said, about to run right at the tagline. So I would move that. From there, this cover was kind of tricky for me because I liked it, but I felt like it didn't have a punch that I felt like it really needed to have. And I began to try and think of what a solution would be to fix that. And if you want to keep your imagery like it is, and it's fine imagery, it's vector, it's what you see in nonfiction type books. You could maybe play with pulling that rocket ship over here and letting the arrow on the U go on up further to kind of run along with the rocket ship. Just a small thing, but I think it might help to kind of play with the imagery and have a little bit more fun and a little bit more integration with the type and your illustration. Now it's going to offset your imagery. You're going to end up with a little bit of space, more space over here, and that's okay. I would try it, look at it, see if you like it. If you don't, go back to what you got. Because what you got here isn't bad. But I think you could probably take it next level by tweaking some of those things and kind of playing along with the type and how the font integrates with the image. That's a theme we keep going back to, is how the title interacts, or does it interact with the image. And it's something to think about, because just like the image, the title is its own graphical element, and you need to think about how they play with each other or how they don't play with each other. All right. Next on the list is Confident Identity by Matt Pavlik. This is it's a Christian strategies type book. I didn't get Christian from this image or from this cover. But what I do like about this cover is I love that little fish and that shark fin. And this title is called Confident Identity. The title supports the image. So I think you've got a great concept. I think you need to ramp it up some more. And my suggestion to that would be to take the fish and the shark fin and this section of the cover and blow it up, center it up, and let it really be the dominant part of your cover. Because the goldfish and the shark fin may be something that's been done 1,000 times. I've never seen it done before, so I thought it was super cool when I saw it. And I really think you're losing an opportunity to really play that imagery up. So imagine making this fish big and bright and bold and being the center up top of your cover. And then your title would come right underneath it like it is now. I would lose your kerning here. Kerning is great. To me, it has no point right now in this. I would also pick one solid color, probably this orange gold color you got going on versus that red for your title. There's really no need to have two different colors on your title. Here, you kind of got your Christian strategies off to the side. Again, you want to center. I think centering everything up would be great. Your author name and your other supporting text kind of gets crunched up at the top. I think bringing it down. And this cover, I think, would really benefit from losing some of that text. One of the things it says is author of Marriage from Roots to Fruits. I've never heard of it. It might be super popular. If it is, leave it. If it's not, I don't know if you need it. Again, we're talking about simplifying and amplifying the cover. I'm not sure you need that part. Right underneath your author name, it has bringing your potential to light. That's not going to make me buy this cover. It's not going to make this. That's not going to be a make or break sell point. I don't think you need that line. You've got a little blurb from another author. Those are always cool to have. I'm in support of that. Again, I think bringing it down here into the water area, choosing a font color that's going to play off that water, keep that gold orange theme going, or switch to white. some other color that's going to pop against that blue. And I think you're on your way to making a stronger cover. But like I said, it's got good bones. You just need to rework and rethink how everything lays out and center everything up and make that goldfish and that shark, make that shark fin play up a lot more. I think it's a really cool idea. Next up is Jack Probin. And it's a Jake Tanner thriller. This cover is there. I mean, it reads right what the genre would be. It's right along that Lee Child, Mark Dawson style cover. It's what people in that genre are looking for. And that's one thing to keep in mind. There are certain genres, thrillers, urban fantasy especially, there's certain genres that the readers really expect to find similar covers. And I never want to copy anybody or steal from another artist or anything like that. And that's not what I'm saying here, but readers look for certain image triggers. That's what I'm trying to say. And this cover has those image triggers. It's got the train. It's kind of moving by blurry. It's got a silhouetted figure. The red type is really strong and bold. And it just hits all the points that a thriller novel typically has. You've got your last name bold and your first name unbold. I see why you've done that, but because they're so similar in size, I think you need to just pick one weight and leave it alone. And that's a nitpicky point. But I would pick one weight, and whether it be bold or whether it be the lighter version, and just leave it alone. Or make your first name really small and Probin, leave it like it is. If you're trying to play up the Probin name, I might be saying that wrong. And if I'm butchering your last name, I'm sorry. But it's not intentional. But because they're so similar in size, I think you need to pick a weight and stick with it, or make your first thing small and let the Probin be the big leader. Also, the space in between your little blurb here and your title, I think I'd bring it up a little bit. Nitpicky. And Jake Tanner, you could probably pull that red down here to Jake, kind of pop off Jake a little bit more if you're trying to build that Jake Tanner brand. Red right there would help Jake Tanner stand out, I think, a lot more. So, but again, great cover, great bones, good, solid piece. Next on the list is For Sale Murder by L.C. Blackwell. This cover I like. Again, I think there was a lot of great covers submitted for this critique, and this is one of them. I like the house reflected in the knife. It'll probably get lost at the thumbnail. That's okay. You don't have to have everything read in a thumbnail. Naturally, you want your title to be legible. You want it to be clear. You want your imagery to be clear. But be aware some details might get lost at a thumbnail, and that's okay. It's okay. Some small points on my end. Your author name here reads okay, but it's a little bit, it's black, so it kind of gets lost a little bit. So maybe a light gray or a dark or mid gray. Some other color. I know you don't want to probably use white, but some other color other than that black, because it kind of gets lost. Or the other solution would be to lighten the background right back here a little bit to make that read a bit better. So a small point for the name of this cover is called For Sale Murder, and it read to me like it's supposed to be, like for sale, comma or colon, whatever, murder. It just didn't have the comma or the colon here, and that's a weird point. And Martin had mentioned that to me. I try to avoid punctuation in a title when I can. Sometimes you got to have it. There's no way around it. But colon or comma up here, I think might lose a little bit. It read fine to me when I read the title. For Sale Murder didn't bother me a bit. If this is going to be a series, I don't know. You could have For Sale Betrayal could be the next title in a series, and if that's cool, if that's what you're aiming for, that's awesome. So to me, it doesn't bother me. I think the cover draws your eye. That big white spot right there. Your knife could be a little bit bigger. Maybe it goes up to the top just a little bit more. But I think overall it's a pretty solid cover. and some of the points I'm mentioning, like that, putting a colon or a comma or whatever, if you decide to do that, it's a non-essential. You're not going to lose a cell. You're not going to gain a cell. No one's going to say, oh, that cover doesn't have a colon, I'm not buying it. You know, that's not going to happen. So I think, like I said, it's a great cover. It's a great solid piece, and it's a great start. So next on the list is Helix by Nathan Fargu. I can't say it. I'm sorry. Fargia. That's terrible. I know that's wrong, and I'm sorry. I should just avoid saying author names. I will. I'm sorry. But great cover, great piece, solid piece. It's pretty much there already. Nitpicky points on my end. Your USA Today bestseller is the same size as your author name. I don't like that. I know you want to play up USA Today bestseller. Totally understand. But I think in terms of hierarchy of text, that probably needs to be a little bit smaller, by 5 or 6 points or better. Just enough to where Nathan is your big point, your secondary thing, and USA Today is your tertiary element. Here, this is kind of like that Cursebreaker that we had a little bit ago. You've got some nice sky blue background, nighttime kind of thing happening, and the lighting on her body or on her face, or actually just her entire body, looks like it's pulled from a photo shoot in a closed room with bright lighting. And to me, that kind of breaks the atmosphere of this cover. I think if you overlaid some blue on her face, or just pulled in some of those colors, darkened it a little bit, that would really help to kind of integrate her into the background. Because right now, it reads to me like there's a break because of the tones in her face and the background behind it. And I'm a huge fan of integrating those things together to where they all read as a cohesive piece. Also, you could probably have some more of those little embers and flecky things, debris. I'm a huge fan of atmosphere, smoke, and debris. I think those kind of things, especially on action or sci-fi, fantasy things, can really help provide a provocative atmosphere for a cover. So some smoke, some fog down here at the bottom to help kind of break up that solid blackness. But again, it's a solid cover. It's on its way. It's a great piece. A good submission. All right, I think we're coming close to the end here. This is Arrows of the Leviathan by Jeremy Dooley, and this cover has some good elements to start with, but I think it fails in the execution. One of the things you need to be aware of, and I've already kind of mentioned it, is hierarchy, image hierarchy, text hierarchy, and because I do this all the time, it's second name is a fantastic font, and there's a free version of those online. Blue Screens is my favorite condensed font. Those fonts read thriller or sci-fi really easily, and you've got a really long title here, so it would really help your title have some space and some dominance on the cover. The two images you have is this green military guy and this background pattern. I think you need to focus on pulling that military guy to the center, and then maybe overlaying that pattern on top of him a little bit where it's just the white showing, or put it behind him where it arcs above his head. An arc or circle is a huge element that cover designers use in covers all the time. And so I think you need to focus on maybe making him be the prominent piece and that pattern being a secondary imagery piece. Right now they kind of read half and half. It's just a solid, I'm going the wrong way. It's just a solid cut right across the middle of the cover, and I think it kind of breaks up the feel of the cover. Your name down here, your last name is a little bit bigger than your first name. That's okay. I typically don't do that. I like them to be the same unless it's just a really big name author. Their last name is really big. I think you could probably make it just a little bit smaller. Where a lot of covers we've shown, the author name has been too small. Here it might be just a little bit too big. So just keep that in mind. But again, focus on making this guy maybe be the prominent imagery feature, and that pattern being behind his head, or maybe it goes around him somehow. But just begin to play with those things to really ramp up the cover from where it is. All right, this one, Darby 6, and it is a sexy sci-fi satire. And this cover made me smile because I'm a sci-fi junkie, fantasy junkie. I'd probably read this because it seemed kind of interesting, kind of funny. The illustration and the imagery, spot on. It is fantastic. I would guess either the author is a fantastic artist or they hired this thing out and it's a tremendous piece. Where this cover begins to lack for me, again, is the type. And if you'll notice, you can kind of tell that whoever laid the type on top of the imagery really began to be afraid of having the title or the text overlap the imagery. And I understand as somebody who doesn't do this all the time, that you don't want to lose the imagery, but again, it can support, and the title can support and integrate with the imagery in a cool way. Darby 6 could go across the page, and her hair could overlap the bottom of Darby just a little bit, and that would be a really cool point of interest and a really cool point of play. Darby 6, it's lowercase. You don't see a lot of lowercase titles. Here, I think it probably needs to be all caps. Unless there's a reason it's supposed to be lowercase, I would do all caps. The font, you could probably go with a more sci-fi font here. I don't really mind the font that Darby's in. I'm trying to think of what font that is. I can't off the top of my head. I don't necessarily mind it, but I think it needs to be punched up. You've got kind of this textured overlay, and you got kind of a dark spot right there over here at the X, and I think you need to make sure that font plays a bit brighter. So I would add some light color to it to make sure that font reads really easy. Again, you got some kerning issues where you spaced out the title. I don't think you need it here. You see a lot of spaced kerning with sci-fi. Here, I don't think you need it. My first thing I would do is make that all caps, pull the title across, and let her hair overlap just the bottom of the D and the A and the R a little bit. Your author name gets lost immediately. I didn't even know it was on there. I thought they had forgot to put it on there, and I saw it down here. I would pick probably, if you keep the font you have for Darby, I would put my author name in there. It's a good rule of thumb to have two fonts sometimes for a cover, but the other time you can do just one font for a cover and be fine with it. So your name, either just bolder in that font that it is now, and probably white or light, or make your font, your author name, same font again, making it white or light so that it reads. Let the people know who you are. I understand you don't want to make it overpower, but let the people know whose book they've bought. All right. The last two, I'm gonna call it a day. Project Hope by Stan Allen. Project Hope by Stan Allen. This cover is a sci-fi style book, but it does not read sci-fi at all. It reads it reads just kind of bland. It doesn't tell me it's sci-fi. It doesn't tell me anything. And it says almost a science fiction novel, but science has been misspelled there. And that's okay. You can fix that, no problem. But it just doesn't read sci-fi. And one of the things that I would like to, again, urge you to do is look at your competition. Look at what's popular. Look at what's selling. Look at the covers that catch your eye and think, why did that cover catch my eye? What is it about that cover that I like so much? Is it the way they handled the type? Is it the way they handled the imagery? And see how that thought might play into your cover. This story is about some scientists who have kind of like godlike powers to help fix the human race. And even though they fix it, it still causes problems. And so maybe there is something you can pull from that. How did they fix the human race? What did they do? Is there imagery there that can help tell the reader about this story? Because this doesn't tell me anything. And so I would really, really look at playing that up. One other thing I wanted to mention is you see it occasionally is this band of color and then an image. There's nothing wrong with that, going with that cover style. You see them for nonfiction, you see them for fiction novels, for literary, for all kind of novels. You see this style where you've got a block of color and then you've got an image. It's a very, very cool thing to do, but just be aware that sometimes you need to really play that up. I've got this cover here. I didn't do this cover, by the way, but Michael Sullivan, same style, same kind of style as this cover here, but his is done. It's been ramped up. The title feels the block. There's some texture back there to kind of play off of. There's a nice hierarchy to the text. The title reads easy. Then his name is the secondary font size, and then the series name is the third font size. And you can do that same thing here. Project Hope could be real big, fill the space. Then Stan Allen would be the next thing down, and then a science fiction novel would be your third level. But again, I would rethink my imagery, rethink just from the ground up this cover in general. Look at your competition, see what's working, and how you can maybe apply it to that cover, because it needs a good bit of work. Last one up on the list is Wally Sid, A Pest at Wise Acre Farms. I'm a dad now, so I look at children's books all the time, and I love the illustration here for this cover. I really like the way I like the energy the illustration has. I think it's a fantastic illustration, and but I think again where it falls is with the way the type has been handled, the title has been handled in kind of a poor fashion. The font they use, it's not a bad font. It's okay. Again, they got the lowercase thing going on, and you need to be aware that most time it's an all caps situation if you're going to have a title. Not necessarily always the way to go, but most titles are going to be all caps. And they've got their series logo, series name here. One of the things I would do immediately, take this circle up here and pull your circle down with story by and illustration by. And actually, I would probably lose that and let the story written by and the illustration by, that text be in the font for Wise Acres down here at the bottom. I think it would be okay. You've got a copyright thing at the bottom here. I don't think you need that for the cover. I don't really know that you would need that for the book cover. If you're going to have it, put it, fade it back, put it in the corner. It does not need to be an integral part of your cover. So your author name and the illustrator could go down here perfectly. One other thing about the way you've got the title here, again, just imagine if you played up this title. If A was kind of small, but Pest was real big, At was kind of small, and then Wise Acre Farms ran below it. And imagine it sat behind that little beaver's head just a little bit. Where you have that overlap, where you have that little bit of play, how it could read just a bit stronger and read a bit better. And let your title be a part of your book cover. It doesn't have to be a separate element. And here I feel like it's been treated as a separate element and not integrated into the book cover itself. With your logo for your title here or for your series name, I understand you want to brand it. You want to make sure it's on the page. It does feel kind of plopped on there. So if you rethink the way your type sits, maybe your title sits, maybe rethink how your brand plays with that a little bit. I understand you want to be on the page and on the cover, but you could play with the size and its placement just a little bit more and make it, again, more integrated. I think that's pretty much it. One quick question here that I'll answer. If anybody else has another question, feel free to fire away and I'll answer one or two before I wrap up and end the broadcast. Diane Pickle said, do you have any insight for those of us that have no idea where to begin in developing a cover? When I have a new brief, I have a cover, I have a person contact me. The first thing I do is I've got a folder full of book covers and movie posters that just catch my eye, and artwork that just catches my eye. And I'll open that folder up and I'll just start clicking through it and just looking. I'm not looking to be necessarily inspired. I'm looking at things that I like, things that catch my eye. Why did I choose that cover? So I would say, if you're going to be trying to get ideas about a book cover, and either you're going to be the one that tries to do the cover or you're going to hire it out, get you a folder and type in book covers, either sci-fi book covers or fantasy book covers or covers that are related to your genre. And again, find the ones that you like. What is it about that cover that catches your eye? Why does it make you want to buy that cover? Because we've all seen covers. When we see them, we want to buy them. Why does it make you want to buy? What do you like about it? Is it the colors? Is it the arrangement? You know, even if you're not a designer and can necessarily articulate everything, you still know why you like a cover. Drag those covers into a folder. My best thing would be to really begin to expose yourself to artwork and to imagery that will help you kind of get those wheels turning. Another thing that I do for my covers is I don't have my sketchbook with me, but I do word bubbles. You know, I write down things that are related to that genre or related to that cover in particular, that story, and I'll write a word, circle around it, make an arrow off of it, write another word that relates to that, and just kind of I develop a word bubble. I mean, it's super simple, takes about 5 minutes to really just, again, you just wanting to get your wheels to turning and getting your brain turned on and getting it going. So anyways, all right. Well, guys, again, thank you. Have a wonderful evening, a wonderful night, and I wish you guys the best. I wish you guys the best with your covers and with your work as an author. I hope you all are best-selling New York Times authors by the end of the year. So, all right, you guys, take care.